old age. Your real nature is that you're spiritual and that you have the ability to go back to heaven, to the spiritual realm, whatever anybody wants to call it, but to hang out with God. Now, whether that's Jehovah, God, Allah, or Krishna, they're all names of God. And maybe if people just remembered the names of God sincerely, the world could change a whole notch around. And maybe if people stopped killing all the animals to satisfy their tongue, could change a bit more.
I was brought up in an average Western school educational system. But my uncle, when I was about 7, he was a member of the Hare Krishna movement. I went to visit him at the temple. So I never, in one sense, I never understood it to be a strange thing or unusual thing for someone to get involved with, because it's something I'd experienced of. So academically, I was, quite gifted. I used to do quite well at school. But at the same time, I became more interested in the social scene that was there, and gave up the idea of pursuing material goals. I used to spend a lot of time visiting my uncle on his farm in Wales, living a very simple, wholesome life. And the qualities he had as a person and the way he approached life attracted me to adopting the kind of values he had rather than the materialistic way of life. I used to at that time I started visiting the temples, I became vegetarian, etc.
Can I ask you what your name means and why you changed it from, was it Dominic you were called?
Yeah, I was called Dominic at birth. So the name we receive at birth is, especially Dominic's a Catholic name, so most Catholic names are given as one of the saints' names.
Yes.
And all the names within our movement are names of Krishna, or one of Krishna's devotees, with Das added. Das means servant. So my name, Damodara Das. Damodara is a name of Krishna, which means one who is bound with ropes of affection to his devotees.
But surely a name
and Das means servant, so I'm servant of Damodara.
Sorry, surely a name is a very superficial thing, and you shouldn't have to change it just to please Krishna.
But my name now as Damodara Das reminds me of my actual identity. The material name no longer has any great relevance to who we are.
So Dominic as a Catholic name was a material name, and Damodar as a Krishna name,
it doesn't actually bear any real resemblance or any real purpose, reminding me who I am. But if I identify myself as Damodar Das, reminding myself always that I'm a servant of Krishna, the same with the way we dress in saffron robes, devotees of Krishna, shaved head.
You say you do this for Krishna. You say you do this for the sake of the spiritual life. I think you said that. But I mean, what I see is someone who's dressed very much in an Indian way, who's accepted an Indian culture. And you say you're very gifted at school. I wonder if you feel you've had to reject the ways of thinking you learnt at school, the Western ways of thinking, which are frankly what I value most, and whether you've just adopted an alien culture.
People in the spiritual world dress like this. Now, in India, because the spiritual culture was implanted in India, in that particular continent, which we now call India, then we accept it to be Indian, because that's our frame of reference. But actually, the details are there in the scriptures that this is how one dresses in the spiritual world.
To me, to be a spiritual person, spirituality is what's on the inside, and I cannot see the relevance, but I cannot see the relevance of dressing yourself up in a uniform, a club uniform. That really gets...
A statement. People in the spiritual world dressed like this seems to belie the whole idea which I have of the spiritual world. I mean, how do you know if people in the spiritual world dress at all?
How do you know anything about anything?
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
How do you know anything about anything? You accept it from authority. Like, when you come into this world, you know absolutely nothing.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you a question. You only know what you accept from authority.
From what authority?
Can't you trust your own experience?
So what's that experience? That's the authority of your senses. Your eyes are giving you some information, your ears are giving you some information, and you accept those to be good objects of information. But the eyes are faulty, the nose is faulty, the ears are faulty.
And the scriptures are faulty as well. The scriptures are not faulty.
The scriptures are a physical thing. I mean,
they're written by men who make mistakes.
You're presuming that they're written by men. We don't accept that they're written by men.
Well, can you give us a bit more sort of backing for your claim that your scriptures are supernaturally? Are they perfect? Are they infallible?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? Because God himself, desiring the living entity's liberation from entanglement in this world, reveals the scriptures through empowered living entities.
The practical problem is that there are so many people like yourself in so many religious groups claiming so much the same thing.
What
and
have I
you
claimed?
all that if we look for ourselves we will find, and we have to test it for ourselves. But how on earth the real people who have to go to work, bring up their kids, going to have the time to search their way through the Vedic scriptures, through the Quran, through the Bible, through
this material body.
I mean, there's so many of
this
them.
material
How do we
body is
find out?
compared to a machine.
Get real.
This material body is compared to a machine. So a machine needs a certain amount of maintenance. But it doesn't mean that, just like a man has a car, so he has a certain duty